I usually go climbing at least 3 times a week. I really like it. There is this entrance downstairs to the climbing gym that has a door next to the parking lot, and when you push it, you get into a stairway. It's not the most welcoming entrance to a place. It's just this dark stairway. It looks like an emergency stairway that you get into. So when I was walking up and I pushed the next door, I felt my shoulder tear. It was kind of painful. I got a little bit scared, but after a couple of seconds it was not hurting anymore. So I just went in, changed, did my normal routine climbing. After I got home though, I was cooling down from exercise, and it turns out I really did hurt myself. For the next couple of days it was hurting whenever I did anything, and I ended up going to the doctor to see what's going to happen. Probably I'll just get some disinflammatories and a lot of rest, so no climbing anymore for me. But it got me thinking of one of the bigger sort of cultural shocks that I've had since I'm in Finland. This crazy and unwelcoming doors everywhere. I really don't like doors in this country. They are very weirdly designed, kind of not made for people who really want to use them in a way. I mean, I get the idea of safety, right? Doors have to be safe and they have to lock properly, but here they seem to take this a little bit too far. Doors are extremely heavy. They're made of metal and glass with 2 or 3 different locks. It seems like you can open it, but you really can't, right? There are these doorknobs that work apparently normal, but they don't actually do anything, and you have to push this tiny little lever under it if you really want to open the door. So I've been thinking I should do some proper research on why doors in Finland seem to be so extremely heavy and are so uncomfortable and difficult to use. And it's not just about me. I mean, in the end, I did have some issue with my shoulder the last time I tried, but that these doors are not really accessible at all. It all started 4 years ago that I got here. I was coming here for university and got into a student apartment, nothing fancy. I was surprised about the doors to begin with. When I really started hating these doors, and I mean it, I really have an issue with them, was when I got myself locked out of my bedroom with one of the automatic Finnish doors that have that lock themselves always when you leave, and they have this tiny little nail breaker button on the side. So when you open the door, you can push with your nail, being very careful not to hurt yourself. And this thing controls whether the doorknob works or doesn't work. So in any case, I didn't know my flatmates at the time, so I didn't activate this sort of always open door. And I had the normal, you have to use a key to get in, that was self-locking all the time. But I didn't consider that I needed to take my keys everywhere. At least it was not sort of hardwired in my head. So twice in the same week when I arrived to Finland, I got myself locked outside of my bedroom when I was going to the shower. It may seem ridiculous, but I ended up having to call the security service at midnight to go open the door while I was just with my towel out there. So then I started sort of paying a lot of attention to it. I moved to a new apartment 6 months later, which was much better, but in any case, I also got myself locked outside a couple of times, but at least I knew my flatmates. My bedroom door was never locked. But then, in this new apartment, there were the washing machines downstairs that I had to use in the basement. And there were 9 of these crazy heavy Finnish doors from my apartment door to the washing area. So every week or so, whenever I had to do my laundry, I was carrying this huge basket of clothes, and I had to go through these 9 doors, most of which, at least 7 of which, required me to use a key and pull one of these tiny levers that are in the bottom, and then open the door. So that means every single one of these doors required 2 hands at least. So I had to put the basket down. It was impossible to open it with one hand. Open the door, hold it with my foot, pick the basket up, and then cross the room or cross wherever, the basement storage area. And that was because I actually lived in the building next to the basement with the washing area. The people who lived a couple more buildings away probably had 2, 3, even 4 more doors to go through. I wouldn't imagine if I had to use a wheelchair or anything, it would have been impossible to wash my clothes in that building. Even though my apartment had inclusive layout with a wider hallway and much more space for people in the bathroom. And whenever I told Finnish people about this issue that I had with the Finnish doors and the Finnish door design, they always said it had to do with the law, right? So there was regulation about fire safety, and these heavy doors in every single building had to do with fire safety. Now, why fire safety doors are very difficult to open even when you have the key, that's something I really don't understand. I mean, I would like to at least be able to cross my building if there's a fire and get to the next one so I can leave. Also, another thing is that they're using these electric keyways. I'm not an expert in doors, sorry about that, or locks. But the keys are really expensive. One of my flatmates in one of the apartments that I was here left the key in his bedroom door, of course, because he didn't want to get locked outside like I did, and then opened the door, which hit the wall, of course, and the key immediately broke. It's not a key that is made to withstand most things. It's not fully made of metal. It has this plastic head, so it breaks quite easily. And he ended up having to pay something like €95 to change that key, which to me seemed totally ridiculous. I mean, where I come from, you can get a key for €0.50, and the doors are usually quite easy to open. Yeah, well, at least if you're doing it the right way with the right key. Anyways, this is probably just me complaining about the Finnish doors. There are a couple other things that I don't understand. In every apartment, you have 2 doors to get into. Most of these are, the second one doesn't really lock, so it's just, I assume, for noise insulation, so that you can't really hear what's happening in the stairway, which is fine. I really understand that. But what I don't understand is how many apartment doors don't really have a doorknob. So when you get to your apartment with your key, you open the door, you rotate the key, and you are expected to either pull on the key, which, as I said before, is not really a very strong key, so it's easy to break, or pull on the lock, which is usually small and slippery, this alloy circular polished stainless steel door lock, or what you're supposed to pull with your nails on the edge of the door or something. I don't understand why some of these doors don't even have a handle. So that's another of the pains of this. But I was thinking, maybe this is just a modern regulation, right? So this is something about Finnish doors that happens nowadays, and it didn't happen before. But then when I've been in university, in Aalto University, which was designed by this very famous architect called Alvar Aalto, I was working late a couple of times in some of the old Alvar Aalto buildings, which have, of course, this traditional tiny lever that you have to push to open the door. But these ones are even worse, because this thing that you use to open the door, it's at my knee level, right? So it's at my knee height, which means that during normal hours, of course, these doors are unlocked, so you can just push or pull. But in after hours, when you're working there as a student, you have a card so you can get into the building. But when you want to leave, you have to sort of kneel down quite low, maybe 40 centimeters off the ground, to open this safety lever that is there, which I really don't understand. I mean, maybe the design for this building was, on the contrary to my old apartment building, designed for people who do use a wheelchair, and then therefore it's exactly in their hand level. But for most of the people who are walking around, it's pretty uncomfortable to lean down to have to open this door. So this is apparently something that has been in Finland for quite a long time. Maybe it's one of those things that have been so long that people here don't even realize how uncomfortable their doors are, and that's why they haven't changed them. I've even been trying to browse through safety regulations in Finland that talk about doors, and most of them talk about accessibility, actually. So it's the other way around. They say that people are supposed to go into buildings, and buildings are supposed to be made so every kind of person can go in or out. Of course, all of these public buildings nowadays have an electric button that you push, and it opens the door so you can cross in case you cannot use your hands. These buttons are well made, they're pretty big, you can push them with your hip if you want, or your arm. But they seem to be put on older doors, so they don't always work. Inside the university, most of these old buildings have these accessible doors nowadays, but then they are not properly signaled, and it's not really obvious which one that door is, so everyone tries to open it again and again and again. So the motors that open these systems that are made for these accessible doors in the end get, I don't know, they just stop working because people are pushing pretty hard on them all the time. So in the 4 years that I've been around in the university, it's quite common, if you just go there, that the doors are not working and they have to be fixed, and they get closed for a day or two while the technicians come and fix them, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, I come from a pretty big city where you have people going, millions of people going in the metro every day, and you have automatic doors like this, and they never really, I mean, of course they break every now and then, but not nearly as often, and they are used much more than what they're used here. So probably there's just not the knowledge of making doors in Finland. It's just very far behind. Probably it's something they have to learn from different, more populated countries on how to make doors that are actually accessible. They don't break. They are easy to open, and also the affordance is totally not there. I am used to doors being quite obvious in the way that if the handle of a building door is horizontal, you can push on it. If the handle is vertical, you just pull it, and that's the way you know how to get into a building. And if that's not the case, then there's a very clear sign always that says push or pull. And this it's not only where I grew up in, but I've seen this all around the world. And here that never seems to be the case. Even though my Finnish is limited, I would like to see a sign saying push or pull in different doors, and that would probably make my life easier. And it's not the 20 seconds that I would, maybe less even, 10 seconds that I would save in my life every day by pushing or pulling the door accurately. But it's more about the hassle of always being annoyed when I get into a building because it doesn't really work. Anyways, so this is one topic that my friends know that I've always had very strong opinions about, and I complain a lot about it here in Finland. There are, of course, lots of great things, but this is one of those things that myself as a foreigner just don't understand, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit. So this is my quick first attempt of making an audio blog. I really like talking about things, and I have always wanted to make a blog. Thanks for listening. I hope this was interesting. And tell me about your doors. What happens in your country? Do you get more interesting, better designed, more accessible and understandable doors where you come from? Yeah, well, thank you.